Welcome for those of you who are just getting logged into the Business 411 webinar. We're going to be talking about things that we've learned from working with multiple 20 million a year roofing companies and being in the industry myself since 2015. So let's see some of the comments. Kathy, she got into the industry because of her husband. That's a very, very common story for a lot of people. My wife's niece husband. Wow, talk about getting in there through the family tree. I started by selling for a company for a year and went to two different conferences and met some big people in the industry. Then me and my partner made a decision to start our own thing 3 years ago, and things have been great. Congratulations to all of you. That's so exciting to hear. I love to hear stories of how people got into the industry. I'm going to be sharing mine as well. If you're in this chat, and you want to share your story, go ahead and chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to be starting in exactly 7 minutes now. Today, just in the meantime, while you're getting logged in, if you have never heard of me and this is your first time experiencing any of Business 411's webinars, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. If you are an existing client and you've been working with us for a while, thank you so much. Because of companies like you is why we're at today. And if you've purchased any of our manuals, if you're using our literature, I just want to say thank you. We're very, very appreciative of the roofing companies that we get to work with, and it is definitely a privilege to be where we're at in the industry. I'm going to be sharing a lot of insight with you all today, and I am going to be sharing strategies that you're going to be able to walk away with. That's the most important part. This is not just a webinar that's going to be focused on certain things. It's going to be mainly focused on strategies that we implement for our clients and what we recommend for you. If you're a growing company, you have to see some of the stuff that we're going to be sharing. It really took me a lot of research and time to put together this information. And thankfully, because of that time that I invested pretty consistently, I was able to put this together with my team. So while we're waiting for everyone to get started, I'll share a little bit of history with you all. If this is going to be your first time watching some of our stuff, or maybe you know a little bit about us, but not too much. So last year, I actually went on a consulting tour, and I went to one or two different roofing companies every single week all over the country. I have a 5-year-old son, so I have split custody. When I wasn't with my son, I was at a roofing company working with a business owner, organizing their processes. And through that consulting program, I visited over 100 companies in 1 year, which I wrote SOPs for all of them. When I first started Business 411 very early on, I was doing business planning and so on. And you guys know we have a lot of different services, but a lot of the services that you see that Business 411 provides was just issues that I discovered while consulting and problems and hiccups that people kept going through. So, for me, my role in the industry is always to share what I learn so that I can help other people not make mistakes that maybe they don't need to make. They can learn based off of experiences of others versus their own experience. And then what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today, what I did was I organized the information and the lessons of the core principles that I saw that were successful in other industries. I applied them to my consulting clients, and it took a lot of work because there necessarily wasn't a formula that was already set. So I had to really create these formulas. I had to really organize things in a way that was scalable. And that's what took me so long. And based off of that experience is what I'm going to be sharing with you all. We're going to be kicking off in just a few minutes. But if you're just getting logged in, please do me a favor. Tell me how you got into the industry. I'm going to be sharing my story in a few minutes when we kick things off. So I want to hear from you. Tell me, how did you get into the industry? Comment it in the chat. So far, we have someone who got into the industry by her husband, someone through his wife's niece's husband. And then I started by selling for a company from Restore Now Roofing. I started by selling for, by the way, great name, for a company for a year and went to 2 different conferences and met some big people in the industry. Then me and my partner made a decision to start our own thing 3 years ago, and things have been great. That's an absolutely great success story. I love that. I love to hear how people go through this process and get into the industry. And it makes me very happy because I used to sell and then I started my company. So I understand that experience where, you go from selling from someone for someone else to starting your business. Colin James was broke out of college and needed a job. I think we can all relate to that one. Seriously. Craig Stevens, I subcontracted to a roofing company during Wilma. Awesome. Love that. And then Stephanie married into the industry. Awesome. I think that's a way that a lot of women get into the industry. But we want to see more and more women get into the industry. And whenever the spouses are involved, we've seen a lot of successful roofing companies have the husband and wife team. That's such a great dynamic to see and something that I enjoyed experiencing and working with, because you have 2 people who are equally invested in the success of a company and both can bring very different things to the table. So I love to see that. Eugene said, my friend. Awesome. So if you're looking for the chat button, it's right there. It says chat. We're going to kick off in like 2 more minutes. So right now we're just talking about some of the stories. Welcome if you're just getting in. We're talking about some of the stories of how people got into the industry. Met a roofing sales manager on an airplane 20 years later, and I felt sorry for him. Then I went for lunch with him and found out how successful he was. He was my mentor for 14 years and is now moving to Hawaii to work for me. I love that. Yes. Colin, the reason I really like that story is because one of the things that I talk about that really affects us in our industry, and it's something that we constantly have to overcome, is what people, their perception of what being a roofer is or working in the roofing industry. I cannot count the amount of times that I tell someone, hey, I'm in the roofing industry, and usually they look at me, they're like, oh, are you a hairdresser, are you an artist, blah blah. I'm like, no, I work in the roofing industry. And they look at me and their jaw drops, because when people think of the roofing industry, a lot of times they look down upon us, and it's very sad that that's one of the realities that we face. But it's awesome when we hear people overcoming, becoming successful, not only changing your life, but helping changing the life of others, not just your clients, your employees, your team, your families. Like, it's such a beautiful experience. And I feel very privileged to be in the roofing industry because of that. Let other people overlook us, because the ones who are in this industry, we know how great it is, and bringing more people in. Accounting partnered with GC. Okay, cool. True that. I never thought I'd be a roofing salesman. Thought I'd be a doctor, lawyer, policeman, or something cool. Now I make more money than any of them. Congratulations. Who drop a thumbs up in the chat if you make more money in roofing than a doctor, lawyer, or policeman. Drop a thumbs up. Francisco worked as a roofer laborer, then started roofing sales consulting 6 years later. I started my own roofing company and love it. God bless all. Yes, amen. I love that. Well, welcome everyone to this webinar. First of all, I want to give you a huge shout out and a thank you for being here today. I'm going to do my best to provide the utmost value that I can, and truly share insights and give you something that you can walk away with. This webinar is not going to be all about, just a bunch of fluff. I want you to walk away with some strategies. And there's 3 words I highly recommend. Take out a pen and paper if you have it available, because if you don't write notes, you're not going to be able to implement some of the stuff that I'm going to be sharing with you. And I want you to get the most you can out of this hour. I want you to write down one goal that you want to achieve within the next hour. For me, my goal is to share as much information as I can and be transparent with you so that this can impact your business in at least one way. And your job is to hold me accountable and make sure that within this hour, you feel like you got something you can walk away with and do something to improve your business or maybe learn something new. So let's set our intentions. Let's make sure that we have a goal for this 1 hour. Every minute of your life and your business and of your life counts. So I want to respect your time. I want you to be intentional about it and write down a goal that you want to accomplish in this hour. If you're raising your hand, if you can use the chat, because we don't enable audio on the other side because it gets kind of crazy when we do that. But yes, please comment in the chat. Second thing, so a couple of things. We are more than happy to answer questions throughout this webinar. So this webinar, I would like to make it 45 minutes. For sure, by 1 hour, it's going to be done. I am going to do a bonus 20 minutes if there's people who have more questions, or I didn't feel like they got all of their questions answered that they have here, or they want to get more information. But by 45 minutes, I'll wrap up the main content and then we'll get into Q&A. And then after the hour's done, if you want to stay for an extra strategy session for 30 minutes, it's something I'm throwing in for free. As a thank you to everyone who's going to invest their time, you invest your time with me. That is the most valuable thing that you can give me. So, this program is all about sharing some of the strategies that I've seen working for $20 million a year roofing companies or more. If you're just getting logged in, last year I went through a consulting tour where I was designing SOPs and instruction manuals and employee onboarding for roofing contractors all over the country. And through those sessions, I was consulting for 1 to 2 companies a week. I am a single mom and I have split custody with my son. So if I was not with my son, I was on the road working with a roofer one-on-one. And working with someone one-on-one on a business owner level is very different than when you're working in a group setting. On the one-on-ones, what I would do is I would bring in things that we're working in other industries that I've spent 7 years learning, just business organization, business principles, processes, and so on, and apply the roofing concepts and some of the basics into what's working in other industries, because we don't have these tools and resources within our industry already. So that's what I was doing. It's not new concepts, it's organizing the concepts that exist and are successful across the board and putting roofing into it and then improving things. The challenges that you're going to go through in roofing are very, very different. Okay, so for those of you who shared how you got into the roofing industry, thank you so much. It's very awesome to hear people who've quit their jobs and become successful in roofing, people who have married into the industry or gotten through their family. However you got into the industry, the most important thing is that you're here today. And something that makes me very excited is you have the opportunity to make an impact. All of us on this call are impacting homeowners, our team members, or the industry on one way or another. So however you found yourself here, you're here today, and this is something that can literally change someone's life because of how great the roofing industry is. So there's 3 issues that I'm really going to be focusing on this webinar. There's several issues in the roofing industry as it continues to grow. As we continue to grow, we keep finding more and more issues. But these 3 issues are things that I'm going to be focusing on solving through this webinar. The first one is, as an industry, we do not have a standard of how a roofing company should operate. And some of the standards that were set in the past are so outdated that they no longer apply in today's world. The second is there is a lack of regulations and business education available within the roofing and restoration industry. So we've seen in some states that don't require any licensing, a huge issue with how homeowners are being treated and just industry scams and so on. So the lack of regulations and business education available for us, and I think kind of going back to the story that Colin shared, about how, looking down on roofers, and then he became a roofer himself. People look down on us because there's not a formal education and process. So I just want you to give yourself a round of applause if you've made it in the industry so far, because despite the odds that we're fighting against, so many people are becoming successful more and more every day, which is what makes me excited and inspired. And the last but not least issue is a high employee turnover creates lack of growth where individuals can thrive and create an impact. one employee being in your business for years and working there and making their position better and better versus having to rehire someone every 90 days or every season is a huge difference. My biggest focus with my employees has always been retaining them because you've already invested the time into training them and they already know the company culture, vision, missions, and processes, so they can take that to the next level. So, well, one thing we really talk about here is breaking through and elevating individuals so that we can do that as well. So a little bit about myself, how most people get into the industry. Like many of you, when I got into the roofing industry, there was not a lot of education available to help me succeed. If you don't know how I got into the industry, I got into working for a software company where my job was to sell, measure, and estimate roofs for contractors. And I did that for 5 years. I used to work with anywhere between 40 to 50 roofers, new roofers a month. I had the privilege through that experience to work with thousands of roofers and go to trade shows all over the country. And that really helped me get to the knowledge level where I was able to start Business 411. But to be honest, there was no one who really mentored me in the industry. I had Google, YouTube, and I would proactively ask people questions. Sometimes I sounded dumb because people would obviously look at me and say, well, this girl knows nothing about roofing, but it doesn't matter. I was learning, and I still believe in having that student attitude. Every single day, I'm learning something new and a new way to become successful. And I will continue to be a student of life and roofing until the day that I die. So I asked myself this very question, and I recommend that you ask yourself this question. If you're at a level where you're already a high performer, there is multiple versions of yourself that you have to become. There's multiple skills that you may have to do. There's a barrier that you have that's stopping your business or your individual performance from getting to that next level. So one thing I want you to take a second to think about is, what is the biggest thing that's stopping you, right, from being that next version of yourself to be successful? So it took me years to figure out some of the things that I'm going to share with you today. And now looking back, it seems very simple. But back then, just figuring out some of the basics was a lot of work. And a big question that I want you to think about, especially if you have a team, is why is it so easy to get into the industry? There's not a huge barrier to the industry, but it's really hard for people to really come in, make it a career, and achieve their full potential as an employee of a company. So we see a lot of people who quit a job and they become successful by starting their own company. But that's the way we've seen so many roofing companies multiply. Why is it so hard for someone to come in, work for a company, and achieve their full potential within the industry? And one of the things is, it's not because even yourself as an individual performance, it's not that you don't have the talent, the skills, or the vision to have a team of successful people who are all achieving their full potential within the industry, right? This is very simple. There's not the tools, the resources, or the path for people to have really a successful career as a general within the roofing industry. There's a path for doctors, there's a path for lawyers, and then you may have a roofing company that's well established, and you might have a handful of people who are making it a career despite the circumstances, despite the odds that we're fighting against, but it's not an industry standard. And that's one thing that here at Business 411 really inspired me. In 2019, after working with so many different roofers, after seeing the challenges that were happening, after seeing that there really wasn't a space for roofing careers, and as a female minority in the industry, that's what I felt my purpose was and is. I quit my job. I started Business 411. And from there, I didn't really have an idea of how I was going to get to the level that I'm at today. I knew that I had a purpose. I knew that I could do something special, but honestly, it was by pure grit, determination. Like, I went through the challenges of finding employees, training employees, losing employees. Right now I have 25 employees, and it happened through a lot of ups and downs. But what I learned is that there was not a path. There was not a path in the industry where you could say, this is how you become successful. This is how you can go work at ABC Roofing Company and fill in position X, Y, and Z. And in 2 to 3 years, you'll be promoted to ABC, and so on and so on. And that's what I've been focused on really within the last few years. I was inspired by this challenge, and as a visionary, as someone who really fell in love with the potential of the roofing industry, I know that the biggest thing that you can do to make an impact is to take action. You can either, sit down and think about it and talk about the problem, or you can do something about it. And I've had a lot of trial and error along the way. And that's what I'm going to share with you, is some of the lessons that I've learned. And hopefully this connects with you. Hopefully you get some 2 or 3 things here that you can implement into your business. But at Business 411, we want to be part of that change, part of that shift into the industry where more qualified top talent can come into the industry and have a journey to be successful. We want people to be successful while working for a roofing company, versus the only way you can be successful is by starting your own roofing company. That's really the biggest way to be successful in the industry today, is to own a roofing company. Now, we want to create that same impact as for the employees, as team members. If you're a team member within a roofing company, there is potential for you to be successful in the industry and for you to achieve your full potential. You don't just have to own a roofing company. So a little bit about what we've been able to achieve. We have currently over 800 roofing companies. If you are currently on this webinar and you're one of our clients, thank you. A huge shout out to you. I appreciate you. And I really value you being part of our community and part of the Business 411 family. So we've had over 800 companies currently using our trainings, but we've helped design, market, and optimize over 650 roofing companies. We've created over 100 brands in the roofing industry. And my journey last year of consulting, I was able to consult for over $750 million in revenue for the different companies. So my total consulting clients, that's how much 2022 they did. And these are the people that we focus on. There's 3 tiers. Today, we're going to be talking about how all of this kind of connects. But here's the 3 tiers of the roofing industry education and what we see. How to start for the business owners, how to start, grow, and plan, right? That plan for the growth of your business. How can you plan? Is there a planning class that we can all join? For the most part, not really, but that's not going to be an issue for much longer, because that's something that I love to do, is I love to plan. The internal team training. So solving team training scalability issues and onboarding the lead time. How long does it currently take for someone to join your company, learn the industry, become successful, be great at their job? Like, it's a huge process. How can we shorten that and become effective? And the biggest way to become effective is through what you're going to see today: structure, process, and execution. And then property owners. Everything they should know about their construction, remodeling, and improvement projects, etc. We want to make sure the more educated property owners there is, the more the bad roofing companies and restoration or construction companies are going to go out of business. The only way we can change that momentum in the industry and create something long lasting is by educating the property owners and educating our team members and becoming more educated as business owners. This is the education that the industry really needs. So I'm going to take a quick pause before we get into the strategy portion. And I want to ask you guys, I asked this question. I put, what does it take to become a $50 million a year company on my Facebook. I'm going to read a couple of the answers while you guys are chatting. I want to say thank you to Marcos. Investing on Business 401 came with a great ROI, extremely pleased. Marcos actually was one of my very first business planning clients in 2021. So he saw this program when it was flowcharts and me just pouring out my brain. It definitely was nowhere near what it is today, but thank you so much, Marcos, for investing with us at that time, and for following the journey. So comment in the chat. I'm going to read some of the comments that people put on my Facebook, because I thought that there's a lot of great ones here. And I'm going to give you one of my favorite ones, which is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lifetime Quality. They do about 50 million a year, and they're one of our Business for One training manual clients. And they actually commented some advice here. But if you're on the webinar, come on, comment. I want to hear from you and hear what you guys think. Let me see, where is he at? Okay, here we go. So this was Zachary Willard's comment. He is one of the owners of Lifetime Quality. They do over $50 million a year. His comment was, appreciate it. We have purchased several training guides from Business 401 to help create the ultimate lifetime training system. Growing and scaling a $50 million plus a year business takes an incredible company foundation. This foundation is made up of high-performing staff, so very important staff, streamlined processes and procedures, and an unstoppable sales team. We are constantly working on efficiency and scaling as we shoot for the moon. We focus on mastering one product vertical before focusing on other things. We think of ourselves as more of a sales, marketing, and recruiting company than roofing, and we do each of these very well. The sky is the limit. Really great comment. Another one was that I really liked was these 4 key pillars. This is by Roy Christopher Moore. If you're on here, shout out to you. Strong sales management, building and working with a team. Very good production manager, working in the crews and making sure the work is moved. I cannot stress the importance of production. Office manager, making sure money is turning and being collected in a timely manner, and marketing team helping the leads flow. Amazing, amazing. Someone gave the math on that, which was 50 mil revenue in residential is right around 100,000 squares, or approximately 2,500 average size house. So let's read out some of the comments here. Having the right people in the right spot, systems, automations, to name a few. Right people in the right seats, very true. Having a very close, great team communication, and also with everyone on the same mentality to be successful. Kathy, agree with Stephanie. A well-researched and planned marketing strategy with a well-put-together execution and measuring plan with a good roofing software. All righty, there we go. I love that. Technology is so important in any industry as it evolves. Plan, lead, and execute. Love that. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about one of the things that makes me very passionate, and that's company structure. I used to be kind of not wanting to talk about this stuff because I was like, nobody wants to talk about company structure. That's boring. But what I realized is that I have to talk about this stuff because it's knowledge that I have that I need to share with other people. I need to be more intentional about sharing all of the insights that we have on structure. So we're going to start off with structure, the key element that every company needs to have a good foundation. So the first thing I'm going to run you through is the 4 most common types of business structures and how they apply to roofing. So the first structure is called a simple structure. This is where most of us start off. I was caught in this simple structure for about a year when I was starting Business 411 until I moved to the next level. But some people can be in this structure forever. You can be in business for 5, 10, 20 years, still doing everything and owning a job. So an example is the roofing company owner is responsible for sales, quality control, project management, billing, customer service. If you're not doing it, someone else may do it, may screw it up, and then it comes back to you. And you really cannot trust anyone else because maybe you hire someone, you try to give them a job, they come in, they do the job well, boom, they quit. Then you're like, oh crap, I might as well just stick to doing everything by myself. So this is a real type of structure. You cannot retire with this type of company structure. You will own a job always with this kind of company structure. The next is a functional structure. This is where we're focusing on dividing the business by departments. And the main departments that we see in the roofing industry is operations, sales, and production. And as you get larger, you'll have finance and marketing are two other key components that you may add right around at 20 million, 15 million, 25 million. It depends on your business model and your budgeting and what role you as an owner are going to fit into. And then we have what's called a multi-divisional structure. This is great for companies who have already expanded, have multiple territories that they're managing. And those territories need close management and in-area operators that are focusing on the execution and functions of the business. So this can also apply if you're not going to necessarily structure it by territory. It can also function if, let's say, you have residential versus commercial multi-divisional structure, and then you have all of the key departments separated like that, or if you divide your departments by trade. So there's a lot of different ways to implement a multi-divisional structure. You do have to be at a certain amount of revenue for this to really be the recommended path, or to have a certain amount of territories available. And I'm going to show you flexible ways to structure these. And then the last one is a matrix structure. This is where people are cross-trained on different areas of the business and can pick up where the next person left off very easily. This is a great way for creative teams to work. It's not the best or most applicable for roofing, but this is where people can do everything. An example here is having a project manager or someone who's cross-trained on every area of the business, and they can kind of just be floating around and doing whatever needs to be done. So the matrix structure, it's not one that we primarily recommend in roofing, but it is the way that our business operates because we have a large enough staff. They're not necessarily departments. We have a lot of floating positions, especially our designers and marketers. They are doing everything. While they have specialized department leaders who are focused on the quality control of what they're doing. But we started out we went through all of this. We did simple, which was just me. Then we grew, and then we grew more, and then we got to here. I'm going to talk to you about looking at company structure. What is the objective, right? What is the objective to make sure we are taking away in this area? We want to make sure that you can master company structure, department leadership, company process, and creating scalability within our business model. Our business model is we focus on two key components, is structure and process. So the first thing, when you lay out the structure of what you want and you integrate the process, a mistake that I made early on was thinking that job descriptions were going to fix things. Job descriptions don't fix things. It's good for when you're hiring an employee, but when you are retaining an employee, when you're showing them how to move forward, when you're improving your process, that job description 99% of the time changes on the fly. And that's if you are focused on having high performing employees. My employees' job description can probably change every 30 days if I was to sit there and write it out, because the company is growing so rapidly that I need to keep them growing. So we have departments, divisions, and services. From there, we go to, this is how I organize the process outline. You can use my process outline for anything, any area in your business with this process outline. If you use this core principle, I have it divided into 5 different principles for the process. The first is file. That's where we're defining scope. Stages are, where does this go through our business? Checklist is, this is actually something that got done. Deliverable and transfer go together. So if I need to, let's say I'm going to use the example of appointment setting to an actual booked appointment with the sales. So I'm sorry, lead to sales, lead to estimate. So lead to estimate, the deliverable that's necessary is a booked appointment added to calendar, CRM notes, research property, ordered measurement report. That's the checklist. The deliverable can be an appointment set in the sales rep calendar. And the transfer was, did you set the appointment in the sales rep's calendar? Yes or no? Did you check the address? Yes or no? Did you make sure that they have the zip code so that they don't get lost? Yes or no? So these, if any, and if you put this into any part of the process and you look at what are the transfer points in your business. Sorry, I'm going to get super detailed there and I have a lot more content, but look at the areas of your business where you have transfer points. I'm going to continue to move through this because I have a lot of content to get through with you, but we can talk about company structure for literally an entire day and I can go into that. So I'm going to move on to, is production a department, a job, or proper execution of the scope of work? And you can answer this in the chat, whatever you think production means. But I'll tell you where this question came from. The biggest issue that I saw in between roofing company departments, that's sales job, that's production's job. Well, the admin didn't. Well, the sales rep didn't take photos. Well, production didn't schedule it. Well, who's supposed to notify the client? Well, I had another appointment. That interdepartment communication, production is everyone's job. Production is the execution of the scope of work. Who does that require? It requires operations, it requires sales, and it requires an installation team. The first shift that we made is change the name of the production department to an installation department. Where is it? Here you go. So I'm going to show you here how we're going to fix it. I'm going to go back for a second and take you through the steps. But that's the first change that we made, to change the terminology of what production means to a client. What does it mean to our internal team? And what does it mean to us if you're a business owner? So these are the objectives that we have. We're going to be inputting a functional structure. So this is the typical functional structure. When you think about it, we made the change of changing production to installation. What are the next changes that we have to make to really create this content, put it into our business, and create that shift? So this is the way that we operate at this current one. We do have more advanced classes if you are doing more in revenue. But if you want to, even if you are doing 25 to 30 million a year, if you can still use a functional structure. It just depends on how you want to structure the company. But the most important thing here is hierarchy, clearly defined departments. And this is not just a job title. This is a department performance. And responsibilities will be directly implemented through our checklist. That's a huge thing and a huge shift I made with all of my planning and so on, was I have checklists and everything. Each department has to be structured with specific objectives, roles, and processes. And leadership. The company must have an overall leader with specific department leaders. For myself, I'm the company leader, but I'm not any leader for any department. I focus on being that visionary role while I have specific leaders who are leading the team to their maximum performance. So the first thing we have as our objectives with working on a functional structure is, and first of all, drop a thumbs up or a comment if you're liking this content. Give me some feedback. I want to know what you guys are thinking. This is the first time that I do this webinar and present this information, so let me know. Creating a functional company structure in the roofing industry allows us to keep an efficient and profitable business model. Our company gross profit goals with this structure specifically can consistently reach between 35 to 45%, depending on your market and services. And each department should have clear leadership and accountability to define who is responsible for the overall performance of a department and key players. And we have a separate segment on key players within a roofing company. But this is a very simple functional model. You have the CEO, a sales manager, the office manager, and production manager. This is the leadership team. And then you can go into what is under these leaders. So you have a functional structure for sales can be having your canvasser, your junior sales rep, a senior sales rep, your team lead, and then your sales manager. And then on the operations, you can have an office manager and an administrative assistant. We have a separate category for if you're going to have a bookkeeper and so on. Sometimes people are using a third party for bookkeeping. And then you have on the installation department, your production manager, your site supervisor, and your field tech. And we can play around with this business model a lot, but these are some of the key components for Model A. For Model B, this is where we've advanced and we now have directors who are taking over these departments. As this is where the CEO now truly owns a business. And that's where you have a sales director, a general manager, and a production director. And the reason why we do it like this is more of a multi-divisional structure where it's going to look like, this is going to be this model includes having territory management. So territory management, if you see here, we're carrying over, it's supposed to be sales director, general manager, and production director are still overseeing the remote territories. And here you would input what we want the territories to do. So if you have multiple territories, the way that you're going to know if they're performing is through these three key players: your sales director, your general manager, and your production director. And the individual locations are going to vary a little bit. And this one we created what's called more of a tactical sales hierarchy versus one that has more of a path based. A tactical sales hierarchy is where we're focusing on business development, actual sales, and sales management. On the operations side, we had to add more depth. This is where we have an admin assistant. We added in customer service. Some people call this position inside sales, and sales rep would be outside sales. You can call it whatever you want as long as you have a good structure for it. Then you can have your marketing director and bookkeeping there. Then you'll have your production assistant, your site supervisor, field tech. And in this one, you may have an estimator if you're doing commercial and so on. And from there, you can go into, this is what the remote territories might be if you want to keep a slim operating base for those remote territories. And these people might just be under the main headquarters as well, with just sales and installation teams. You could have operations is still part of main headquarters, and sales and installation is remote territory management with some kind of headquarter there, with not headquarter, but remote territory. So I want you to really think about this information. What are the 3 biggest communication issues that you have today in your company? And you don't have to answer it in the chat. If you want to answer it in the chat, I would really appreciate it because it helps me understand each of you better. But if you can answer, what are the 3 biggest communication gaps in your company today? And let me hear from you. I'm really interested to hear. I'll tell you some of the biggest communication gaps that I've seen. We put it in a pre-production process to fix this, but we saw sales to production, the process of bringing a file into the office to then bring it outside again, really caused a lot of chaos. And the main way that it broke was with scale. When you have 5 jobs a week, it might not break. When you have 10 jobs a week, it might not break. When you have 15 jobs a week, when you have 20 jobs a week, and the file goes outside, inside, and then outside by another employee, you have 2 transfer points just to create a delivery. And that's not including all the other moving parts of outside components, which would be homeowners, suppliers, people who are involved in the execution of what we said production. The true definition is the scope, execution of the scope of work. So when we're looking at these key components and we're adding in slide and we're adding in scale, that's where the breakdowns truly start to happen. So how can we fix these key breakdowns? When you look at And this is one thing that we started doing whenever we started having issues, because we're human too. We have a company that's consistently growing. So we've broken our processes all the time. But the biggest difference is now that we have such high performing processes is that when they break, we fix them at an even higher level and we automate them. So we have the process, when it breaks, fix, automate. Do it again. What can we automate now? So how can you create a process? In order to truly understand what process means and how to improve your business, what is a process? A process is a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve our particular end. So we can have multiple processes within the business. We can have a hiring process, we can have a training process, we can have a recruiting process, we can have our operating process. And when you start to think of your business as a junction of multiple processes running through your company, that's where you can truly start to see the impact of how you're operating at. So we have a Facebook ads process, we have a webinars process, we have a business owners meeting process, and we start to break things down into a way that now that we've added this as a big focal point of our business, improvement happens so much quicker, which allows us to implement a lot quicker. We don't need to have this huge gap of waiting 3 years to implement one piece of information. We see this piece of information, we see our process, boom, where does it go? And so implementation, and this is so crazy, the word process, implementation is the process of putting a decision or plan into effect, which brings us into execution. So structure, process, execution. Those are three key pillars that we have focused in me creating this 411 roofing system program with my team. This did not happen overnight, guys. This stuff took me a lot of time to really put together. I'm sharing as much as I can with you. You're going to see now some of the stuff and some of the key elements on how I structure my processes. But this 1 hour webinar is definitely not enough time for me to go through everything. So what is process implementation? When you put those two words together, it is a strategic approach. So this means this is an approach. Doesn't mean it just happened one day. It doesn't mean you just put in one process. It's an approach that you're going to be consistently taking to adopt new procedures. Businesses may implement new processes for different reasons, such as streamlining, efficiency, reducing errors, or driving business growth. So this is the second component of improving and implementing processes. Don't wait till it breaks to fix it. See what you can do where your processes are today to improve. Because if you improve it before it's broken, then you have to deal with a lot less headaches. So here is an example. I have this process. It goes way further than this, but this is just a simple example for you to understand how we put this information together and how you can use our knowledge for yourself. So what I did was I created two different levels of just process. This is called process overview. And then we have process execution, which I'm going to show you on the following slides, how you execute a process, how you implement the process. But when you're doing a process overview, the first thing you want to do is divide it by stages. In this one, we did lead, sales, insurance, production, and retention. You could easily do marketing, lead, estimate, sales, insurance, production, retention. The production within itself, these are actually called workflows. So you have what's called a stage, then you have a workflow, then you have your actual implementations checklist, which I'll show you on the following slides. So the lead stage goes into the intake workflow, the qualifying workflow, the rep assignment workflow, and then the scheduling the appointment workflow, which then takes me into the sales stage, which takes me into the pre-call workflow, the interview workflow, the inspection workflow, the presentation workflow, which is where you're selling. So what's your sales process is within your presentation. And that's one thing that I want you to understand. Processes are within your processes, within your process, which is why I'm using different words for you guys to understand. So stages, workflow. And then what I do here is I start to add objectives. Whenever you want to implement a workflow and you don't establish an objective and you just like Literally how I started was writing out my processes on whiteboards, like a lot of us have probably done. Then like started mapping it into charts. Then from there, I started deep diving more and more and more. Shout out to Marcos, who went through a lot of that with me in the beginning in my very first days. But now the way that I've done it, I've learned, okay, cool. I have my stage, I have my workflow for that stage. Now I need my objective. And the way that I structured it is each stage has a workflow it must go through in order to be successfully executed from beginning to end. Each of the workflows within the stage will have their own objectives, procedures, protocols, and checklist items to be completed. And these are all part of completing the main stage objectives and will help you streamline each of these jobs from beginning to end. Example would be a lead to satisfied client. So here is some of the main training points on how I structure this information. And if I'm losing you, comment, ask me some questions, because this part is very crucial. If you're really looking to take your company to $20 million a year, understanding this information, you are going to be able to accomplish that in a peaceful state of mind. It's going to be less chaotic, and you're going to be able to keep a lot of that revenue and profitability within your business if you understand how the business performs. So whenever you're going to the transfer stage, these are some of the examples of the training points that I add. But at the top, at each of my I have one of my books here. On each of the books that we have, can someone from my team bring me a 411 roofing systems book, please? Thank you. Actually, I have a custom one here. Very quickly, just to show you how I organize a page on my processes so that you can understand how this applies to you, is beautiful. Love you guys. Y'all are the best. This is how the whole thing gets actually put together. So you have the stage, highlighted the workflow, the objectives for that stage, and then we did the implementation. And then it goes into the next page, which this is how to complete contracts pre-production review. This is the stage, this is the workflow, these are the objectives, and this is the checklist. And some of them have training points where you need to really be knowledgeable on that process. But what are some of the biggest components that allows me to do? Having my, whoops, here it is. Where is it? Look at me, always doing something. Having the ability to know what we're adding into the formula really helps you. So what do I do when I want to implement a workflow? There's the three areas. There's the objective, asking the right questions, and how do I implement it? And this is an example of what asking the right questions would be. Then you're going to move into how you can pay attention to the detail, how you can execute on this information. And that's what a lot of companies are missing today. You might have a process, but you might not have an execution guide. You might not have standards for how it's done consistently every time. So getting into the execution aspect, here's a focus question that I have for you. What new hires would make the most impact in your business? If you had to hire one person today, who would make the most impact? Obviously, sales would help all of us. Sales is going to make everyone more money. Sales is going to be great. Think what we were talking about. Process implementation is a strategic approach that you take to the whole way that you view your business. So if you're going to be strategic in the way that you view your business, think about this. Strategic wise, what new hire would make the most impact in your business? And you don't have to write it to me. You don't have to say it to anyone, but I want you to write that answer down. Think about that, because at the end of the day, you're spending your time on this webinar, almost 45 minutes now. You need to leave with something to do. You need to do something. You can't just keep waiting, right? Don't just be a receptor, be a creator. And the second aspect is do you have the tools to support them? When you're looking at the hierarchy chart of how your business is laid out, are you truly in a position of power to empower your team members to be successful. And that's really, really one thing that drives me, is to create power so that I can empower. You can't empower others if you're playing from a position of defense. You can only do it if you're being offensive. And the only way to create offense is to really be strategic and plan your plays. So do you have the tools to support them? I have something to share with you guys. Hopefully from here, you already have a lot of information that's going to help you. If you feel like this information is something that you want to work with me on, I do have that availability. I've created the roofing process manual. It is this book that I have put my blood, sweat, tears, spend time away from my son, like sacrificed so much to create this manual. And now that it's all done, and my team and I have really finalized it, I want to share it with as many people as possible. So this manual does come branded to your company. This is our company owner's playbook. It's not necessarily just for your team training, but it's as a business owner for you to really understand. I, more than anything, recommend this, which is the class. It's a 2-day class where I really go into this book, and I'm not just going to give you highlights like I did here, because unfortunately I'm pressed for time. And I told you guys I would do 45 minutes of the presentation. I'm going to, in a minute, after I go through this, if you have to go, I totally understand. I'll go back and do a QA now. I just wanted to be respectful of the people who have a limited amount of time and have things to do in the next few minutes. So the 411 roofing systems class, it's 2 days, and we do a happy hour in between that where everyone networks. We had 36 people at the last one. We do it here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And you can bring someone with you. You can bring multiple people with you. We just have to talk about it and see what we can do for you. But this is the full standard operating procedures. It includes me walking you through it. I'm not just going to give you the information. I'm going to teach it to you, and then I'm going to help you integrate it. If you're coming to this class, I recommend bringing an integrator to the class with you so that you can create that long-lasting results. If you want to join this class, please send me a message, let us know. I do have a special offer for those of you who attended this webinar. Send us a message if you're interested, and we are doing 25% off for anybody who's coming from this webinar. I guess I'll just stop sharing my screen. But it's 2 days of just going through this information. Like I was saying, this information, there's not enough time to really go through all of this. If this is something that truly piqued your interest and you want to know more, maybe you want to do the manual and get it yourself, you still can get that 25% off, or you want to attend the class. Let us know. We're very interested. And like I promised, I just wanted to finish going through those basics. As far as the slides, we're going to be sending a recording of this information for you all. And we have a PDF that we're going to share with everybody who attended this webinar as well. So if you attended, you do get a copy of a specific file that we made for you. It doesn't have everything that we have, but it does have a lot. And we'll be sending that to you all through email. Thank you all so much. You can reach out to us if you have any questions. Other than that, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being here today. Bye, everyone.